What do you think about the rise of communism here inside of America?
You know what? It's not surprising.
But I think I'm pretty pro-communism. I'm pretty pro getting rid of prisons.
I am married into a family who escaped communism, and we are far from that.
The democratic socialists are just a form of communism.
Communism is primed for countries like England, America.
Communism never works, but it's such an easy idea.
Here in America, communism is rising. Today we're going to be asking people here in New York City about the rise of communism, socialism, the Democrat Socialists of America. There's lots of ideas that are going and being spread around across the United States that revolve around communism. So today we're asking people here in New York City, from college students to lawyers. We'll be talking to everybody about the rise of communism here inside of America. Let's get into it. Let's start talking to people here and wait till the very end because it gets very interesting. Let's go. Your laptop right here says, "This machine kills fascist."
Yeah.
Right now we have a rise of communism here inside of America. What do you think about the rise
of communism?
Communism ideas, socialist-like ideas. The DSA is very prominent nowadays.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, you're in the home of democratic socialists in Greenwich Village. This is where it began and where it's thrived and where it's been thriving for over 100 years. So this is the home of it, and I hope it spreads through the country. The more that we take care of each other, the better we are collectively going to be.
Do you think if we tax the rich more, we'll have more resources to give out to those that need it?
Obviously, it's so freaking stupid. The billionaires are not paying taxes. And if they just paid their share, we would have health care for all, for instance.
And what do you think about, for instance, a lot of people say like we need to tax the billionaires more, but then we also see all this fraud that's taking place here inside the United States. Do you think if they just got rid of fraud, we'd have enough resources for everyone?
Just because some thieves are stealing some stuff doesn't mean that we should stop the system and stop taxing people and stop helping people. Just because some people cheat doesn't mean you should wipe out the system.
And since Zoran's taken office, there's been about a lot of millionaires and billionaires have left the city, and there's now it's estimated that there's like $11 billion that will no longer be able to get collected from taxes here inside New York City. Do you think by taxing the rich, more people will flee New York?
No, and I don't believe those numbers. Everybody wants to be here, so there's no reason for them to leave.
What do you think about the rise of communism here inside New York City and across America?
It's deplorable. Absolutely deplorable that we're allowing this to happen. Everyone needs to just grow up and wake up.
What do you think about the rise of communism here inside the United States?
The rise of communism? That would be hard for me to answer unless we have a shared definition of communism.
Yeah, so for instance, right now here in New York City, they're now freezing the rent. They want Medicare for all. That's free Medicare. They want to tax the rich, redistribute the wealth. Zoran Mandami, he also wants prisoners to get released. He's trying to get rid of Rikers Island and abolishing private ownership in some cases as well.
Okay, thank you for this definition. My thoughts are pretty positive. I feel aligned. I can't really speak to specifics, but I think I'm pretty pro-communism. I'm pro making things accessible. I'm pretty pro getting rid of prisons.
How can you like to get rid of prisons?
Well, like the system of criminality is a very strange way to interact with, like, I guess humanity in general, and like things that as a species we're not interested in, like perpetuating. I think it's kind of backwards. And so I'm not certain what prisons are actually doing for our society. And so...
Would you like to have criminals out in the open?
Well, do I want criminals out in the open? Sure. I'm fine with that because the idea of a criminal is like a little bit funny to me.
Let's just say somebody who has raped a woman.
Totally.
Would you like them to be out in the street?
I think my answer is yes, even though that's a challenging answer to say.
So if you got raped, would you like your rapist to be out in the street?
Well, like, let me finish. Because I have been raped, and they are out in the street. And I'm not sure, like, them going to jail is a solution to, like, whatever's going on inside their heart, or even my own heart that, like, contributed to that experience that I'm having. And I don't want more people to get raped, but I don't know for certain that going into a jail in the United States is going to shift anything inside of their, like, operating system so that they'll make a different choice again.
Wow, well, thank you guys so much for your time. And is there one last message you'd like to give to the people about potential the rise of communism or freeing the people inside the prisons?
just like free yourself from the own prison in your heart, and then maybe we can get somewhere.
So underneath the DSA, the Democrat Socialists of America, they actually want to defund the police and abolish prisons. In fact, Zora Mandami was watching the World Cup with prisoners of Rikers Island. That lady she even said herself, just to be on the street. It's a bit crazy. Can you be a communist and also be an American patriot at the same time?
I don't think so.
What do you think about the rise of ideas like communism and socialism here inside of America?
Are you serious? Do you think that that's a serious concern?
Yeah, I do actually. For instance, there's like a big group called DSA, Democrat Socialists of America.
Right.
And right now they just published a thing saying they want to get rid of President, Senate, and Supreme Court.
It sounds so radical, like abolish the Senate, abolish the Supreme Court, like et cetera, but it's not. Like those are the things that need to happen in order to have a political system that actually like works for working people.
So whenever people are like, oh my God, they want to get rid of the president, I was like, well, I don't know what we would call it in the future. We could call it the head honcho of whatever.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. That sounds like an extreme position. I don't think kind of socialism in America is represented generally by that point of view. So.
The mayor of New York is a member of DSA. What do you think about the rise of communism here inside of America? The ideas of communism?
I don't think I would agree with the premise of the question.
How would you rephrase it?
Or let me just answer that I don't think communism is rising in America.
What do you think about some of the ideas that are becoming very popular here inside the United States?
I'm a professor here at NYU, and I can tell you those are not communist ideas, right? Those ideas can belong to a social justice agenda or a left liberal agenda, but I wouldn't describe those as communism. So I think in order for your question to work, the assumption that communism equals those things needs to be rectified.
You got these professors and these teachers and stuff like that. They're also agreeing with this kind of stuff and stuff like that.
We just talked to a professor at NYU, and she said those are more like left-leaning ideas. She didn't refer to them as socialist or communist-like ideas.
Oh, of course, yeah. To me, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's just different degrees of it. That's all.
What's the truth about the rise of communism here inside the United States?
There's a few things. So one, a lot of our younger generation, they've been taught about Nazism and fascism. They have not been taught about communism. They have not seen the little black book of communism. They've not seen the piles of skulls. They have no idea. People like myself are actually from Russia. We know what the reality of communism is. To them, it's this la-di-da sort of fantasy life. After all, Karl Marx himself was an unemployed loser who sat there writing about things that he was just making up, pontificating. There was no connection between him and reality, not at all. So that's one thing, right? The other thing is that we have, I think someone called John Doyle, who's on the internet, he refers to it as, race communism, right? So it's not just white liberals with communism. It's now also this like weird anti-white, anti-oppression, this idea that the only way to make up for some sort of white guilt people have is to redistribute assets, and it has to be done in these kind of multicultural, sort of largely failing cities. And then there's a third thing, and I think this thing is something that's very scary and we have to really be aware of. Not everyone knows about this. It's called the Red-Green Alliance, which is basically that Islamism, which is very much focused on conquering the West, has seen that the best way to infiltrate the West is to undermine its nationalist institutions through communism, because communism always inherently has been anti-nationalist and has been obsessively humanist and obsessively egalitarian, right? So it wants to abolish borders, it wants to abolish nations. It's all about class, and it's all about everyone being one soup of humanity. And these Islamists are smart. People don't know this. In the 79 Islamic Revolution in Iran, the Ayatollahs rallied all the students with communism. We're going to be together. And then the minute they overthrew the Shah, all their heads were cut off. That was the end of that.
And why do you think communism is kind of on the rise here inside the United States?
Fear. Americans are scared. They're scared of losing what they have. They're afraid of minorities. They're afraid of women's rights or women. So I think it's all fear-based. I am married into a family who escaped communism, and we are far from that. I think people like to throw around the word communism because they want to scare people so that they won't vote for other things because of fear of communism.
And right now, here in the biggest city of America, you have a mayor who is a member of the Democrat Socialists of America.
That's
What's
right.
the truth about this organization?
The truth is that if you actually look in Africa or Southeast Asia, you'll find some of the most horrifically totalitarian regimes have the word democratic in it. It turns out that putting the word democratic into something doesn't actually make it democratic. In fact, if it was democratic, you probably wouldn't have to call it that in the first place, right? So, the democratic socialists are just a form of communism trying to pretend that, oh, well, we're just like Norway. Well, first of all, Norway is, funny how they use Norway as an example, it's like 90% white. But second of all, Norway has a very high tax rate, despite having very high average income to begin with. What they are is they are just communists with that racial sort of animus. There is really no collectivist movement that is A, not Marxist, and B, and they admit this, they say we're trained Marxist, and B, there is no socialist movement that is not, the idea of a democratic socialist is comical, because socialism is about the seizure or control of private property. You can't vote your way out of rights. You can't, it's not democratic because you use the force of government to seize people's assets or to regulate their assets into non-existence. That's not democratic, that's autocratic.
And some of these ideas right now that are being pushed, like government-run grocery stores, or seizing the property of individuals, freezing the rent, abolishing prisons, defunding the police. What is that in reality?
Well, in reality, there's this very strange sort of Olinsky, they call it ideal, where you basically you actively destabilize society in order to get people in their desperation and misery to turn to the same government that destabilized it for more help. The goal is to get people as dependent on this as possible. If you look at the most racist right-wing movements, the one thing they do is they kick people who they don't agree with out. Socialists don't want to kick anybody out. They want to force rich people that don't agree to stay because they need their money to maintain this system. But all these things, I mean, think about the madness of this. What that's run by government, go to your DMV. Does that run well? Now imagine everything run like the DMV. Are these states any better? Is it better to live like this?
We've talked to a lot of college-age students and people that work at colleges today, and they say this isn't really a rise of communism. They say it's more like left-leaning ideas.
Of course it's communism. You can try to name it anything you want. The distinctions are pathetically non-existent. You argue these, oh no, we're not like a communist. We just want to vote you into having no property and like the government controlling everything, but it's not communist. The name is not what matters. What matters is what it is. And what it is excessive government control over every aspect of your life.
What do you guys think about capitalism?
These are really good questions. Yeah, this is crazy. I would say that capitalism, you know, in its true form, not awful, but right now we're currently in late stage capitalism and that's affecting everybody. The cost of a bagel should not be $7. The cost of a matcha should not be $10. And currently, you know, so much of America is living paycheck to paycheck on minimum wage, and minimum wage is no longer even covering the cost of life, like necessities like rent and groceries. And that's clear that capitalism isn't effective in our daily lives anymore.
And what would be your solution?
I think, you know, what Mamdani is doing right now is really great, like trying to make things more accessible, trying to encourage like rent stabilization, even making like, I know it hasn't happened yet, but like the bus fare is free. Little things like that, trying to control the price of groceries. Like those are the things that we can do that are small but have a huge impact on people's daily lives.
And how come we're starting to see this rise of Democrat socialism? Or some people even say it's like the rise of communism.
Like, why are we seeing it?
Yeah, why do you think it's becoming a popular issue?
Oh, I mean, I think it's because people are finally like realizing that capitalism isn't working anymore, especially late stage capitalism. Like, people know that they're paying most of their paycheck on their rent and their groceries, and then they're no longer able to have a fun bagel or go out and get a drink with their friends because a beer is $12. Like, people see it in their daily lives and they're realizing that this is no longer working for them. And I also think that with the rise of the internet, people are able to see how this is working for countries in Europe, where they do have free healthcare and they do have, you know, low grocery prices, low cost of living prices, and they're still able to afford being a human being.
Would you rather have capitalism or communism?
Well, communism as it is in the Marx Engels Communist Manifesto has never been implemented in society. You know, they say in the Communist Manifesto that communism is primed for countries like England, America, and I think the Netherlands as it was, you know, when they wrote it in the 1800s. So when they implemented it in Russia and China, they bypassed the sort of systems of industrialization needed to make communism effective. And so I think that we've never seen communism work. We've never been able to see it work in systems where it's applicable. And so I don't think I can answer that question correctly without like fully seeing a system of communism in effect.
Would you like to see a fully communist America?
I think that there's so much in our system right now that would not allow for that, and I think that being like, especially like a quick switch would not work, but I would like to see late stage capitalism kind of taken back a little bit.
Out of China, Soviet Union, Cuba, Venezuela, what's been your favorite form of communism?
Well, again, like I said before, those aren't real forms of communism.
Why do you think oftentimes people flee communist countries like Venezuela, like Cuba, to come into a capitalist country like America?
Because it's not real communism. When you have those states in effect where it's not actual communism, it's more authoritarianism and totalitarianism, and these regimes emerge also by a byproduct of American interventionism. People aren't happy because there's clear inequalities that exist. People are unable to live, and that's why they flee these countries. Again, not real communism. So I don't think it's fair to say that like people are fleeing these communist countries when in reality it's a totally different state of affairs.
We've talked to a lot of these younger folks over by NYU, and some of them said that they don't think there's such a thing as a rise in communism.
Because they actually never lived it. They don't know what it's like. They're not. I'm not saying they're not educated. They're book educated.
Yeah, they don't think communism is even rising here. Yet the mayor of New York City has said that he's actively freezing the rents. He wants to have government-run grocery stores. That's something you'd see in Cuba or Venezuela. Not something you'd see here inside the United States. We already have food stamps.
Well, he already said he was going to do free groceries. Now they're not free anymore. Now they're discounted. So
also he said about free MTA, mass transit. Can't do that either.
They also want to start taxing the rich even more. Do you think we should tax the rich more, or should we eliminate the fraud that's happening here inside the United States?
She'll eliminate the fraud in a lot of the programs that are not hitting who needs it. You know,
the rich people have carried, and I'm only going to say New York, carried this state for a long time. Now it's just starting to see people are moving out. Companies, you got Chase that went down to Texas. You got half of the stock market that went down to Texas. So it's just black and white right there.
What do you think about the rise of communism here inside the United States?
Well, it's actually a reality. Not a lot of people take it seriously, I will say. For example, my background, right? I was born in Peru, South America. So I actually know how it is to live, because I was born in the 85. So I saw how bad it is and how it affects people actually, right? I came over here when I was very young. I served in the military. Right, I'm a veteran, and I see what's happening. People think that they have everything for granted. They don't really appreciate what it costs to fight for freedom. When you get out of here, like when I was deployed, right, you see what the real world is, you know? People fighting in different countries just for a piece of food or water.
So would you say to those people that don't think what's going on is a rise of communism, would you say they're being misled?
Oh, absolutely. It's just that they don't care. And actually, when they see people like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this, but the mayor we have, right? All the promises, he's telling people free buses, free this, free that. Again, where's the money coming from? There's no money, you know? And instead of that, now you're raising taxes, right? And all the people, wealthy people, that actually creates jobs to make more money going somewhere else. Now where you get the money from?
Why do you think communism is on the rise, and what do you think about communism?
I think communism sells. It's such a simple idea and message. It obviously doesn't work at all, but it's something that you could so easily say to a young, naive college person or young person in general. You can say everything should be free, and healthcare should be free, and universal, and education should be free, but people don't really understand the ramifications behind that statement. So, I mean, this is nothing new. People have been trying to sell the idea of socialism and communism for years and years and years. I mean, obviously, in pre-Soviet Russia, you had communism. That's where a lot of it started. You had the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks. And the Mensheviks were kind of like your mainstream run-of-the-mill Democrat. And then you had the Bolsheviks. This was way back in like the 1800s, 1900s. And the Bolsheviks came in, they were kind of like the DSA activists of today, and they said, well, the Mensheviks and the Democrats aren't being radical enough, and they aren't promising you all the things that we're promising you. We can give you free education and universal health care and all of these great things, and then they never deliver. So that happened back in the day. It's just like a recurring ideology. History is a big fat circle, and it's happening again because it's such an easy thing to sell, but it's never worked. Didn't work in Russia or the Soviet Union or China or Venezuela. Communism never works, but it's such an easy idea to try to convince people to vote others in with. So I hope that people read because those who know history do not repeat it. So we just have to teach kids why it doesn't work.
What does it mean to be a part of the DSA and be a Democrat socialist? What's that actually mean?
So DSA is the Democratic Socialists of America, and it's very, very scary. And the Democratic Socialists of America, they are using the Democratic wing of politics to Trojan horse all of their ideas through, but they're very different than mainstream Democrats. What these Democratic Socialists of America want to do is usher in communism and destroy America from within. And I'm not being dramatic when I say that, because there are many DSA members who are online all over X, you can look it up, saying we want to take down the American empire from within. We want to destroy Western civilization. They're vastly different from the left. They want to destroy all of the institutions that we hold near and dear here in America. They basically want to root out everything that our founders worked so hard to build and start again, just like the Bolsheviks did way back in the day. Repeating cycle, it's terrible.
Interesting fact came out that Zohran Mamdani actually makes more than the vice president and people like Pete Hegseth.
This is what's most hilarious to me, because he is an immigrant from Uganda. He came here and is experiencing one of the greatest American dream success stories. So his parents were not from here.
He also says America was built on white supremacy.
He said that? Of course he did. They all say that, but it's not. So he's an immigrant from Uganda, came here and is making more money than the vice president of the United States as the mayor of New York City, and he wants to tax you more money. But they never look inward. So the thing with these champagne socialists is they're always going to be looking to grab money from anybody but themselves, and they're going to enrich themselves in the process. So I'm not surprised at all that he's making more money than our vice president and many other high-ranking political officials. And what is Mamdani doing? He's the mayor of New York City. He's basically in charge of the subway systems, the trash cans, and keeping the streets clean. Somehow he's still managing to mess all of it up. But his role is not that intrusive, yet he's making so much money. And before this, his only other job was that he was a rapper. We need to bring back merit, and we need to kick these socialists out of the country.
Cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take